morning everyone. I am Trisha May B. Carmen, taking up Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Science. And for today's video, we will talk about pollution. Pollution is the introduction of harmful materials into the environment. These harmful materials are called pollutants. Pollutants can be natural, such as volcanic ash. They can also be created by human activity, such as trash or runoff produced by factories. Pollutants damage the quality of air, water, and land. Many things that are useful to people produce pollution. Cars, pollutants from their exhaust pipes, burning coal to create electricity pollutes the air. Industries and homes generate garbage and sewage that can pollute the land and water. Pesticides, chemical poisons used to kill weeds and insects, seep into waterways and harm wildlife. All living things, from one-celled microbes to blue whales, depend on Earth's supply of air and water. When these resources are polluted, all forms of life are threatened. After sharing you my idea about pollution, it is now time to discuss to you the sewage system in the Philippines and also the sewage disposal. But we will talk about first the sewage system in the Philippines. Most Philippine cities have drainage systems of some kind. There are no separate storm water and wastewater systems. So wastewater from septic tank systems freely mixes with the storm water. In practice, this is not as bad as it sounds, as the volume of storm water is large and may well flush out the drainage system and it contains into the streams and rivers. So the installation and maintenance of drainage systems along with roads and water systems is one of the major responsibility of local government. So this is a new sewer drainage system in Villa, Iloilo City. It drains directly into the Batiano River. From a public health perspective, this is progress. It gets seepage and storm water out of neighborhoods and into the river. So the systems are not necessarily centralized. The idea is to get wastewater to a nearby ditch, stream, or river. So most residencies will have a septic tank or cesspool to treat toilet waste. So this can provide some very basic level of treatment of human waste. The output of septic system or the septage is piped to subdivision or barangay drainage system. Rainwater, wastewater from sinks, showers, and washing is generally discharged untreated into the drainage system. So sometimes the drainage system is more or less underground and sometimes it is open concrete ditches. So this can be smelly but cheaper and easier to keep clear that covered drainage systems. So in many places, the drainage system is under the sidewalks. The sidewalks consisting of concrete slabs covering the drainage channel. Sometimes these are broken, so walk carefully or plunge a few feet into the malodorous mess. So there is no further treatment of the waste before it plunges into the nearest stream. Next is the sewage treatment. So sewage systems collect wastewater and treat it before discharging it back into the environment. So these systems consist of intricate networks to underground conduits or sewers, so that convey the sewage through the treatment process of the point to disposal. So sewage system also handle the flow of rainwater either separately or as part of a single system. So separate systems are generally preferable because in single systems, heavy rainfall can overload treatment plants, with the result that untreated overflow can become a source of flow. So in separate systems, rainwater is often allowed to flow into streams untreated because it is assumed to be relatively clean. So sewage is processed in three major steps called primary, secondary, and tertiary treatments. So most areas do not use all three, and different areas use the treatments in different ways. So first is the primary treatment. The initial and sometimes the only method of cleaning wastewater is primary treatment, which consists of removing floating chunks and fine particles of solid waste. So the simplest form of primary treatment is a cesspool, now found primarily in rural areas. So a cesspool is a big tank with a porous bottom and sides, and that lets the liquid wastewater filter into the ground while holding the solid waste. So periodically, the tank must be cleaned. The solid matter, called sludge, is sometimes used for fertilizer or landfill. So septic systems are somewhat similar, though the tank is connected to a drainage field so that more waste can be dispersed over a wider area.
In primary treatment process, the sewage flows through the grit chamber very slowly, so that the sand, pebbles and soil settle down at the bottom. The sewage flows into the settling tank or sedimentation tank, where the solid wastes like feces are allowed to settle down. Wastes such as soaps, oils and grease rise to the top of the wastewater. The waste material that settles down at the bottom is called the sludge, and the floatable material is called the scum. Scum is then removed using a skimmer, and sludge is removed with a scraper every few days. The water that is left out is called the clarified water.
So next is the secondary treatment. Today, large cities are usually required to put their wastes through both primary and secondary treatment because primary alone removes so little organic material. So secondary treatment uses aerobic or oxygen breathing bacteria to decompose organic wastes. So the main object is to put the wastewater in contact with as many bacteria as possible while keeping it aerated so that the bacteria have an adequate supply of dissolved oxygen. So one of the most common secondary treatments of this type is the activated sludge method, so called because it uses sludge that is activated or teeming with microorganisms. So after going through primary treatment, the sewage is input into the activated sludge tank, where it is aerated by pumps or blasts of compressed air. So the compounds produced, the bacteria remain mostly suspended in the water and flow out with it into a secondary sedimentation tank. So lastly is the tertiary treatment. So wastewater that has received primary and secondary treatment still contains dissolved materials, so that make it unsuitable for almost all uses except irrigation.
In the secondary treatment process, biological or organic wastes are removed. It is a biological process. This is done by transferring the clarified water into an aeration tank, where air blowers bubble air, which helps the aerobic bacteria to grow and feed on the organic contaminants such as food waste, feces, and other organisms. The mixture then flows from the aeration tank into the clarifier, where activated sludge settles out by gravity. The activated sludge so produced, along with the sludge produced in the primary process, is transferred to the digester, where it is decomposed by anaerobic bacteria. Biogas is produced in this process, which can be used as fuel or can be used to produce electricity. The activated sludge is then left in the sand drying beds. Some quantity of water in the activated sludge evaporates and the remaining quantity drains through the sand beds. This leaves behind the remaining dried sludge, which can be used for making fertilizers or compost.
So lastly is the tertiary treatment. Wastewater that has received primary and secondary treatment still contains dissolved materials that make it unsuitable for almost all uses except irrigation. So tertiary treatments, which depend largely on artificial chemical processes, are designed to remove these materials in order to make the effluent safer to discharge into waterways and safer for industry to use. So a number of methods may be used, including radiation treatment, discharging the effluent into lagoons, and chlorination. So sewage may also be passed through filters made of activated carbon, which consists of finely ground charcoal grains with rough, pitted surfaces that trap impurities. Alternatively, sewage may be strained through a screen. Alternatively, sewage may be strained through a screen made of tiny seashells called diatomaceous earth. So the effluent may also be treated with chemicals that transform the dissolved organic material. So some chemical compounds, for example, combined with the nitrates in sewage to produce various salts. Such treatments are expensive, however, and are difficult to perform routinely.
Tertiary treatment process, the leftover wastewater is treated with chlorine to remove the phosphorus compounds, nitrogen compounds, and bacteria. It is a chemical process. Chlorine tablets are added to kill the germs. This process is called chlorination. Then this water is let off into the water